Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, hello friends and welcome to another weekly wrap up. I don't even know what we're at now. I think it might be week 25. But I do know last week we had a double dipper. There was a lot of books we got through, and this week we have 8 different things to talk about. I was fully back on my fan fiction bullshit, but I actually got through quite a few other things as well. So I'm excited to talk about those. But first off, I do want to welcome a new patron. I didn't end up getting her name, but the screen name that I have for this is Endless Possibilities. So Endless Possibilities, welcome to my Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. Every person who supports me, you keep me going on the rough days. I'm glad I had a really good push the beginning of the week, because the last 2 days I had really heavy migraines. In fact, the video that I filmed yesterday that went up on Saturday, which for you guys is yesterday, but whatever, I had just come out of like a 2.5 day migraine. I hadn't had one that lasted that long in quite a while. It was miserable, which was so ironic, right? Because I just made a video about chronic migraine. Well, not just about chronic migraine, but chronic pain. And I'd been feeling so good. And then, you just can't control when stuff is going to kick you in the butt, right? That's how it goes. But anywho, let's get into talking about what we're going to talk about this week. Ooh, that is itching me back there. All right. So first up, I had a reread of Sweet Prison by Neva Altai. And as I mentioned, I believe last week when I talked about Frozen Heart, I love this book, and I'm so happy that this is the one I reread after reading Frozen Heart. I'm going to end up putting this down because it's shiny, and it's going to bother me that it's shiny while I'm holding it up. Why all authors aren't using matte covers yet, I don't know, but that's just how it is, and us booktubers and bookstagrammers will have to pay the price for it. But after Frozen Heart, I was just feeling a bit, well, here's a pun, a bit disheartened. But I knew Sweet Prison was going to be good because this was a 6-star read for me. And I knew that I was going to be in good hands going back to this book. And that's the truth. I truly did. I still loved Zahara and Massimo so much. It still moved me. I enjoyed it. It warmed my heart. It had me kicking my feet, and it was still all the delightfulness I wanted it to be. So what is this one about? So this one is book 10 in the series. Yes, it is. And while most of her books, you can read them out of order because they're about different parts of the mafia world, that you do kind of need to read books 9 and 10 together, right? But this one is about Zahara, who her family, her father marries Massimo's mother. And Massimo is the only child left to his mother. And Zahara's father has a son who is about the age of Massimo, and then 2 daughters who are really little. Like when their parents get married, they are literally children. And so Massimo doesn't even think about them at all. He isn't around them at all. He's busy becoming, a made man, learning what he's gonna know about leading the mafia, and doesn't pay any attention to them. But not long after the marriage happens and their families combine, Massimo, the stepbrother, I always forget what his name is actually because he's only in the book for so little. Elmo's his name. His name is Elmo. He ends up getting killed, and Massimo immediately seeks revenge because he does really like his stepbrother. He thinks he is actually a quite lighthearted and kind man, and he wants to protect him. And when he gets killed, he wants revenge, and so he kills who does it. Now, he's expecting, you know, a pretty good deal, so I believe he does put in that, like, I think he even puts in a plea of guilty, if I remember correctly, expecting to get a deal because of how it went down. Like, he was getting revenge for his stepbrother, and also they thought they kind of owned the courts, but he ends up getting a conviction of like 18 years or something like that. So Massimo goes to prison, which isn't what's supposed to happen. But that ends up leading to, I think his name is Nunzio, is the stepfather's name, also Zahara's father. So Zahara's father, Massimo's stepfather, and he is kind of then running the mafia for Massimo, like in his place, while Massimo is in prison. So that's kind of, but then we fast forward many, many years, and now Zahara is a teenager. And I think we come back to her when she is maybe, yes, when she is 4. And we get, well, is that when she started writing them? I don't know. Either way, we come back to her when she's a teenager, and we learn that she has been writing letters to Massimo, and he's never answered her. But she started writing him letters for a school assignment, and she has just kept doing it. Then we get a POV of Massimo, and we learn that he just thinks these letters are kind of frivolous, but he's like, whatever, I'm getting these from my young stepsister. Until in one of these letters, she is kind of treating these almost like a diary in what she's sending him. And she includes some information about I believe it's like a party that's being held at their house and who's there. And it doesn't quite match the information that her father has brought him when he's come to visit him. And so this leads Massimo to decide that he wants to start communicating back with Zahara and try to use her to get information. And eventually he not only is using her for information, but he sets some tasks for her to do as well. And so for the next few years, she does those things for him. And what I love about this book and how it does a good job is he's not thinking any desirable thoughts about her. He still pictures her as a child. And to him, she's a tool that he can use, right? Because he is like a mafia don. She is someone who is under him. She is a tool for him to use. He's not thinking that in a cruel sense, but he's thinking of her as an asset to him. There is nothing inappropriate in his mind about it at all. He's just seeing there is this discrepancy about what she's telling him in letters and what her father is telling him in the visits. And his mind is very clear about the difference. What really starts to change things, though, is when her father actually dies and Massimo gets let out of prison for the day. Not like let out. He gets escorted to the funeral of his stepfather with guards, and he actually meets Zahara for the first time. And I believe she is 18 when he sees her face to face for the first time. And he realizes how beautiful she is. This woman that she's a woman now, and this is who he is talking to. Now, he has also this voice in his head who I have dubbed Dark Side. He calls just him the asshole or the psychopath side of him. I dubbed him in my annotations the Dark Side. That's what I call him. And he is actually written with, explain this if you've ever read Wolf Gone Wild, the way that Alpha is written, that is how Dark Side is written. He's written in bold, he's written in like these bold, dark italics in here. And he is kind of the like lesser, baser version, but also the more brutally honest version of Massimo. And that's how he's written in the book. And it's a little bit of like a split personality that Massimo has as well. But anyway, now that he's seen her, he is like, oh shit. And he tries to tell himself it's just because he hasn't been with a woman in all these years. And this is someone who, you know, he's been able to correspond with. Of course, he's going to have feelings. And he really tries to push that down. And then he also doesn't want to put her in danger. So he starts trying to be more because now that their father is dead, Massimo really needs to assert control. So he makes I should stop talking. Let's stop. Let's stop now. I've talked about this book many times and I don't need to go into a full recap. But my point being, as I say whenever I mention this one, this is a step-sibling romance. I talked about it in my taboo step-sibling video, where I never feel for a moment any weirdness about them being step-siblings. They're not raised together. He's in prison, like, far until she's an adult. He himself is racked with guilt about that. Zahara herself doesn't have any guilt about it at all. She very much wants him. And once he is out of prison, the man is fighting a losing battle, because not only does he crave her, does he feel peace when he's around her, she's his only safe, quiet place in a world that is just so loud and wants to come after him. But she's not giving him an easy time either, because she thinks his reasoning for wanting them not to be together is stupid. And one of my favorite parts of it is that he is the one who has helped give her confidence, helped give her boldness. She's done dangerous, crazy things in his name while he's been in prison. And now that he's out of prison, he can't just undo all that good work that he's done to give her confidence. And now when she turns that confidence on him, he's like, oh shit, now I have to kind of like pay for this in a way. And by that, it means she wants me. So anyway, still managed to talk for a long time, but this was still a 6-star book is my point. I still love it. It was still my favorite in the series, and that felt great. And it did still make me sad about, you know, I'm going to be rereading Precious Hazard, but I probably won't be rereading Frozen Heart anytime soon, and I'm sad that I didn't like that one more, but whatever, Sweet Prison was still great. Right. Another book that I annotated this week for one of my patrons was Wicked Love by Willow Astor. So this was a really nice one to revisit. This one is book 4 in the Single Dad Playbook series. And this one is the one about Bowie and Poppy. And Bowie is the one who has a daughter named Becca who has Down syndrome. And his wife had actually left him because she couldn't handle having a child with Down syndrome. So yeah, very sad to see that happen to such a wonderful child. But then we have Poppy, who, it's a bit interesting because a lot of their friend group is kind of trying to push Bowie and Poppy together because they think they'd be good together. But Bowie is just so like, I can't be with anyone. I have too much going on. I'm not good enough for anyone. I'm too worried about Becca. Like, there's just all of his excuses and everything. But then there is a wedding that is happening for a couple from earlier in the series. And it happens at the Landmark Mountain, which that is actually a previous series written by Willow Astor, and there's a resort and hotel and everything. I've actually read one of the books from that series, and I want to keep reading it. I need to get back to it, actually. But when they go and stay there, Poppy actually ends up getting locked out of her or not even locked out. Her hotel room ends up getting given away because she didn't check in soon enough. And he ends up offering her to stay in his suite because he has like a suite of rooms, kind of one for like Becca and her caretaker, and then there's one for him. And when they stay together, they end up hooking up. And then this story, he ends up then kind of ghosting her afterwards, which is super awkward because they live in the same small town, and she actually she doesn't fully run it, but she teaches like classes at this camp that works with disabled children. And it's actually a really great camp for his daughter to go to. And he's now made things super awkward. So way to go, Bowie. But this ends up being a secret, or not secret. She doesn't keep it like secret for very long, but surprise pregnancy novel as well. So another thing about this though, that I found really moving was Bowie's relationship with his father. And this was really interesting to me because I'm going to bring this up, especially for how many fanfic I'm going to talk about in this week. But I read this book before I ever read any Heated Rivalry, by the way. But there was something reminiscent in Bowie's relationship with his father that kind of reminded me of Ilya in a way too. Because Bowie's father is actually dying during the first half of this story. And in this story, Bowie is a football player. This whole series is about football players. And his father was the reason he pushed so hard for football. But his father was also very abusive to him and his family. And he couldn't understand why his mom stayed with the man. And it really has made his relationship with football conflicting as well, because he loves football, is something that allowed him to escape, but it also is something that connected him to his dad, and he wouldn't be in it if not for his dad. But it also is tangled up with his dad. So it's both things are all wrapped up in it together. And yeah, I just really felt for him a lot while reading it. So rereading it, I still really love this. And this was one that I originally had an ALC of it, and I did still really enjoy it. And it's funny because this one is one that when she finds out she's pregnant, I don't feel like she makes the best decision to start with. But then this one still completely won me over again by the end, and I really, really loved it. So it really did its job for me and still became a 5-star read again, which was how I felt about it last time too. But I was like, is this a 5-star? Was I just too easy on it? But no, I still felt like it was a 5-star at the end again as well. So loved it so much. Okay. So the first of the fanfics I read this week was one called It's So Easy to Fall in Love with Shane Hollander by Spring Into Action. And this one was a bit of a, not quite a crack fic. If you've ever read, a crack fic is one that's just, all funny and everything. But it's one where Shane and Ilya are still, a secret, but Shane is out as gay. And so it's one where, so it's kind of supposed to be during the long game, and more people now know that Shane is gay than just his team. And people keep asking Ilya for Shane's phone number. So some of his team members who we know are gay keep asking for Shane's phone number, and Ilya's finding reasons not to give it to him. And then when him and Shane will get together, Ilya will say, oh, this person wanted your phone number, and they will kind of have really hot sex because Ilya's jealous. And that happens a couple times in this book. Different people wanting Shane and Ilya being jealous about it. So that's what this one was. It does have more heart than just that. I know I just made it sound really that's all that it was, but it was really fun. And I enjoyed it. And at the time when I was reading that one, it was just, let's see, I had read... at the time when I was reading that one, I hadn't read a fic in a week, and which I know is so long. I waited so long. Well, you're about to see. I certainly made up for it this week I just needed some comfort, and fanfic was the comfort that was working for me. But the last fic I'd read was really dark. It was that weird Omegaverse one that was so uncomfortable. And this was just, it was fun. It was just great banter and kooky Ilya and Shane, and it just made me have so much fun, and the banter with all the other characters was just so cute. So really liked that one. It was a really fun time. Okay, next up was a new release that I had really been anticipating. And I have 2 different beautiful copies of this one, actually. So there is West of Forever. And I got this gorgeous character arc copy from being on her... Well, it wasn't just from being on our ARC team. We had to do some fun stuff to get this one. But this is book 1 of the Heartstone Ranch series. And this was so cute. So I was a bit nervous about this one just because everyone's gone cowboy, right? We know that. And, you know, every once in a while I wonder, I'm like, am I getting burnt out of the cowboy vibe? Like, is it going to happen? Am I going to be burnt out and be like, okay, I'm done? And I just don't think I ever am, you know, I just don't think that I ever am, because cowboys are just in my soul, and this is the kind I really like. And I especially really liked this one because it was a cowboy cowgirl, rival families, single dad, daughter is, I believe, like 10 or 11. Also, I'll show you the cute, this came with one, like, this is his daughter, Sadie Joe, and she loves her chickens. And then, yeah, this is the art from the front. There's Tristan and Lark. This is so cute. That came with my arc from Sourcebooks. It was so cute. And yeah, their families have been feuding for a while. So it really gave me those vibes that I love. And it starts off actually with him kind of rescuing her in the pouring rain. She got a flat tire and she's stuck in the mud, and Tristan's on his way back from selling some horses. And of course, they know who one another are. And she's actually called her boyfriend to come get her, and he doesn't want to come out in the rain. And I'm like, buddy, nobody wants to go out in the rain, but your girlfriend called you, so fucking go get her. But he like won't. And she knows if she calls one of her brothers, of which she has, I mean, I think she has 4 brothers, but we really only have like talked about like 2 or 3 of them in this book. I'm sure we'll get into more. There's a lot to unpack with this family, and we don't go into all of it in this book, which I think is good, right? We got to lay the groundwork for more here. But Tristan is like, let me take you home. It's raining. And she's like, no. But she knows if she calls one of her brothers, she's going to get shit about her boyfriend, because they already think her boyfriend's kind of a pansy, pardon me, but that's what they think about him. And they will be absolutely livid if he didn't drop everything to come and get her, because it's raining, her tire's flat, you go pick her up. It doesn't matter if you're uncomfortable about it. And his excuse, honestly, I would do that for a friend. I would do that for my sister. I would do that for really, like, I would say almost anyone, but not anyone's going to be calling you for that. But still, your significant other calls you in the rain. Like, she wasn't asking him to change the tire in the rain. She was asking him to pick her up. But anyway, Tristan is like, I would never leave my significant other out here. Doesn't matter if we're enemies. Let me take you home. And so, she finally agrees to get in the truck with him. And on the way, driving her home, there's lots of banter. We realize how like uncomfortable this is for both of them, and that they could get a lot of shit. It turns out Tristan has been accused by her family of doing some things on their ranch. There's going to be a lot of petty things they get accused of, so I'm not going to be able to keep it all straight, but there's these petty things that they've been accused of, and Tristan's like, I've literally been gone all day delivering horses. It wasn't me. My family's not doing it. We're busy. Why? But they've even like called the police before, which is really awkward too, because Tristan's best friend is the like deputy in town. So that's awkward for everyone that he has to come out and do it. But anyway, but yeah, so they have this bantery back and forth, and she kind of makes him drop her off at the end of the drive, even though it's like a ways. But she's like, if you bring me up to the house, they're going to freak out. So just drop me here, and this is good enough. Thank you. But now that they've kind of been reminded of one another, they of course now start running into each other all the time. She also runs into his daughter out on the ridge once, where their property lines meet. She talks to his daughter about chickens, and just all these different things. They keep running into one another. And again, I don't want to spoil much about this one, but their family feuds are on a few different levels. There's the ancient feud that goes back generations where their families have been at one another. And then there are a few things that are more recent, where we learn that it is possible that there were friendships that tried to happen more recently and things went badly. Between the spouse of one of Tristan's sisters and one of Lark's brothers. And we just learn that be in a small town. They can't help but have their families intermingled, and things have went wrong again and again. But why does it have to be so contentious, right? So we learn these different things. But eventually, though, these two, they end up starting this kind of rendezvous meetup situation where they will meet on the ridge. And this is where I'll show this again. They'll meet on Infinity Ridge and have sex. So they actually will start setting up this little tent and meet up because Tristan is a widower, and Lark, she breaks up with her boyfriend immediately after this event. By the way, I should say that. She has a boyfriend in like the first chapter, and after he leaves her in that, she's like, dude, there's other reasons too, but it's like, I can't let that fly. We obviously want different things, and you're not the type of man that I want, So they end up becoming secret lovers. And yeah, I don't want to say much more, but I really liked where the family feud kind of went and the reasons for it that get unveiled. It does not fully get resolved in here, even though, there is a HEA for this couple and the families have to come to some light form of a truce, but there is still a lot of hurt, and there still are other family members that are not like on the page yet that we've heard about, that I think may put up a bit of a stink if they ever come back on the page and learn that Lark and Tristan are making a go of things together, which was really cool. So the final thing I'll say, though, is that after you read this book, there is one question that isn't answered within the book. So, make sure you do. I know authors use this as a hook. I know they do. But as someone who works for an author, I do understand why they do it. But after you read the book, if you liked it, you should get the bonus epilogue, because it answers a very important question that you may want to know the answer to. And in the ALC that I had, it had that bonus epilogue, so I was able to get the answer, and I was like, oh my God, that is perfection. So I gave this one 5 stars. I truly loved it. And yes, I know I give that to a lot of Corinne Michaels. Fair, absolutely fair. But I thought this one was done so well. I love a family saga that gets started. And again, I love that they were both like a cowboy and a cowgirl. There was a lot to do with running the ranch, with being a cow. Like, she trains horses, they breed and sell horses. And that was really important to who they were, like the farming, the running of the ranch. And I feel like a lot of times in a cowboy romance, we don't always see enough of that. We're just like, oh, we're on a ranch and we ride horses out to kiss sometimes. No, it's a very big part of the story. And so that also made me very happy. So yeah, love that. 5 stars, 3 on the spice scale. Okay, next up, there was another fan fiction called Staring at the Sun by Nerve Itch. Now, this was a bit of a heavier one, and this is one that starts with Ilya in the hospital. And what I really loved about this one, this one was so good, because it doesn't have Ilya having amnesia, but he doesn't remember the incident, like, on the ice. Like, he doesn't remember his injury. Like, this isn't him waking up from an injury and, like, not remembering Shane is his partner, or not remembering what year it is. He just doesn't remember the game that was being played when he got hurt. He wakes up, Shane is in the hospital with him, Ilya can't speak. His trachea has been almost crushed. He is super injured. He has a broken arm. He has serious gashes on his face that no one will let him look at. And it is a really serious injury. And the way that the story unfolds is that we stay with Ilya's point of view for most of it. And we have different people rotating through to see him, and none of them will fully tell him what's happened, because he still really is healing. And he can't really talk either. He has to use a whiteboard and his left hand, because his right arm is broken. So they're really kind of able to hide a lot from him, which isn't really fair in the start, but They're just wanting to make sure that his brain is all right. We learn that he had hypoxia and he was his brain was being starved for oxygen, and just all these different things we learn about his injuries that he had. So slowly as it starts to unfold, we learn that, whoa, there was an incident at a game that was Ottawa versus Montreal, and Shane and Ilya are on the same team in this one. It is after they are married, and it's their season playing together, and they were playing against Ottawa was playing against Montreal, and something big went down, obviously. Shane also appears injured. We learn that Lucas Haas is also injured, but none of them so bad as Ilya was. Like, Shane is obviously able to still come in and see him, but Shane has, like, bruises on his face and stuff like that. And Lucas has a fractured, like, foot or leg or something. But he's even able to limp in and visit Ilya. So all these pieces start coming out. And when Ilya eventually will finally learn what led to his injuries, it is both horrifying and extremely mundane at the same time. Like, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But this was a really, really good one. I loved this fic. It also isn't quite as horrific as some of the other accident. Like, his injuries are very bad, but it doesn't feel as heavy and horrifying as some of the other ones. And I think that's just because of how great his team is, how great Yuna and Shane are in this one, and how supportive everyone is to him. So it didn't feel as, like, horrific or traumatizing as some of the other injury ones. And again, he doesn't have full amnesia. He just doesn't fully remember the incident of the trauma that he got. So there isn't the added piece of him, like, forgetting he was in love with Shane or forgetting the last 5 years of their lives or things like that in some fics like that. He just has kind of, like, immediate amnesia of what led up to him being like this. So yeah. Very, very good one, and I do highly recommend it. Okay, then after that, I read another fic called, well, it actually is a series of fics, so this one was really interesting. I fell into this one, I don't even remember, I'm sure it was from Threads, but it actually is a series of 4 fics, is actually what it is, but I read them back to back to back, and they're meant to kind of be read as one, like, collective thing. And so when I share them, I'm going to share them as the series. Because if you don't know on AO3, like, if you've ever read a fic that had a sequel, the sequel is always attached at the bottom. But you can always go to the series as a whole, and then they'll all be, like, listed together. And so this series as a whole is called the Haydenoff Phone Swap. Or, no. I said that wrong. The Haydenoff Phone Swap by I Copy the Facts. And the reason it's called that is because one night, Hayden and Ilya are at the same bar, and they end up swapping phones accidentally. They have the same phone case, and they're at the bar, and they take home the wrong phones. And it ensues hilarity. Like, it was so funny. I was snorting with laughter, okay? Because the first POV in this series, because again, this is 4 different little fics that connect together, and the first POV you get is actually Hayden's, okay? So Hayden gets a text from this person named Jane. He is not opening it, but he gets it from this person named Jane. And he realizes, like, I shouldn't be getting a text from someone named Jane. And then he realizes he has the wrong phone. And so he looks up, and I can't remember how he does this, but he calls the person. How does he call his own phone back? I can't remember how he he just calls his number. Duh, that's what happens. He types in his own number and calls it, and Rosenoff answers. And so again, we're only from Hayden's POV in this first one. And he's like, oh my God. And he's like, how can we switch our phones back? Well, Ilya had been going right to the airport from there. So he's like, I'm already at the airport. Our flight leaves in a half an hour. And Hayden's like, oh shit, what are we going to do? And at first, Ilya's just like, oh, it's no big deal. We play each other again in 3 days. We'll just switch our phones back then. And Hayden's like, oh, well, okay. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of things they'll go back and forth. There's a lot why that wouldn't work these days. But Ilya literally didn't have his phone locked at all. He only has a password protected folder. Otherwise, his phone was just open. A professional, closeted hockey player in public just had his phone on the bar unlocked. Okay, so you'll see in a later part of this, like, Shane has every right to be fucking horrified that his closeted fuck buddy didn't have his phone locked and anyone could have grabbed it. Thank God it was Hayden. But anyway, so he also says, don't text anyone on my phone, right? But Hayden is a little bit... Anyway, I don't want to spoil the whole thing. I won't go through the whole thing in here. But let's just say Hayden does text Jane a couple times, and he likes Jane. So this series is called the Haydenoff Phone Swap. But the first fic, the one from Hayden's point of view, is actually called I Like Jane for You. So let's just say this fic does lead to Hayden finding out who Jane is. And we get Hayden's point of view of everything. The next fic in this little series is from Ilya's point of view. And we get to learn what he was feeling on the side of things. But what's cool also is that through this phone swap, Ilya and Hayden, they become friends. And even when things go back to like switch back and everything, Hayden and Ilya like kind of stay friends, and we get to see them be friends through the rest of like Shane and Ilya's relationship, because this phone swap actually happens like pre-club scene. So Shane and Ilya aren't even fully like solidified. They aren't boyfriends yet even. They're still just fuck buddies at this point. And Hayden and Jackie through it all actually become kind of like secret cheerleaders to them getting their shit together very early on, which is cute. So yeah, the first one is Hayden's point of view. The second one is Ilya's point of view. The third one is Shane's point of view. And then the fourth one is actually the social media of it all. And we get to see what happens when social media, one of the phones actually gets hacked and all of these text messages get out there, and how people discover that Shane and Ilya are actually, or Jane and Lily are actually Shane and are Shane and Ilya. So anyway, it was so funny, and I couldn't stop reading them. And yeah, they were just 4 little short fics that in total end up being about like 250 pages of fic. But they were hilarious, and it was so cute at the same time because, yeah, Hayden and Ilya just become such good buddies, and Ilya having someone else to, like, talk to that isn't Shane was honestly just really great. And there supposedly might be another one coming as well that is, like, Jackie's point of view, because we learned throughout it that Jackie also texts with Ilya, but we haven't seen her text threads with him yet. So I do hope we get Jackie's POV with Ilya as well, because I think that would be cute. So, okay, next up, I also reread Silent Flames. So it was a good week for me, rereading 6-star reads, reading Haydenoff, had a 5-star read. It was a really great read for me. 2 5-star reads. So yes, I talked about this one just recently in all my favorite reads this year so far, but I had to reread this one to annotate it. But yeah, this is the cheating book, as I lovingly call it, or not so lovingly as we say. But this is about Adrian and Cora. And in the beginning of this book, Cora catches Adrian cheating on her, and it explodes their life, as you would expect to. But the thing is, there is a prenup in place that if Cora were to leave Adrian, he would retain possession of their children. In no situation would she be able to have custody of their kids, which that makes Cora ready to literally burn down a city. And Adrian also doesn't understand why she's so upset, because this was always a bargain to get a wife and get children, not that they would be in love. So why is she so upset about all of it? You don't really love me. What's the big deal? And he very quickly discovers that he miscalculated, and maybe his meek, calm wife isn't quite as meek and calm as he suspected she was. And it's quite fun to see how greatly he has miscalculated. I will say that for sure. But no, there's so much more to this. As I say, whenever I talk about it, I have never so deeply cared about a man who's cheated on his wife as I do in this book. I don't understand what magistry, which wizardry that Kate C. Wells is able to do to make me care about Adrian. But every time I end up just as much wanting his happiness as I do for Cora. And that's insane to me. It really is. But she does it. I deeply want him to find peace and some kind of happiness as well. And my heart is just broken that he is the way he is and that he made that decision. And what is good about what he did, not what he did, but what's good about the outcome of it is that it really forces them to confront the situation they were in, and that it wasn't as happy as they were pretending it was, and that there was so much that they were hiding. And this really just strips all the facade out of it, and they come to know each other in a way that they never would have. And how long would they have just went along with this facade that was not serving either of them to the best of their ability? And it's so hard to explain that. I know. But those of you who've trusted me and read this, or trusted other reviews and read this, I know you can attest to it being like a unicorn book and a one of a kind, because Kate C. Wells drives you to hate Adrian in just a few pages. But once you start getting his chapters and you see the psychological damage he's had as a young man, and where his the anxiety and panic he was having, and you see that Cora just always pretending everything was fine and living in this blissed out state, and maybe really feeling like everything was fine, was not serving either of them well. And by cracking that, by this affair, however brief it was, however one time only it was, it forces them to face everything. And man, it's so powerful. It really is. It's so powerful. So this was a 6-star read. It was still a 6-star read. I still cried multiple times. Just actually absolutely brokenhearted for these two. And gosh, it's just so good. It's just so good. But I know it's not for everyone. And even me saying how much it moves me, I know that won't work for everybody, and that's okay. But I'm certainly not looking for more cheating recommendations. I have no desire to dive into that by any means. But if you're someone who doesn't mind those, that's even easier sell, I think, because I'm if you don't mind reading the angst of a cheating romance, dive into that. But even if you're not, if you're someone like me who's no, thank you, I think you should still try it, because it is fascinating. It's so good. It's so good. Okay. And then the last thing I finished was one more fic for the road. I know. I told you I was searching comfort this week, and I found it. And some of these fics were just, they were just what I needed. They were just, they felt so good. And this one was one I totally forgot that I had saved and I've been wanting to read. And this one is called Second Chances by Tyler Reed. Just a straight up name for this one. So this one does start with an airplane accident, but it's a time travel redo, Groundhog Day-ish kind of situation. So it starts with long game timeline. Shane and Ilya basically having a fight over text message, where Ilya, he goes further than he's ever went in their fights before. He is texting Shane and he's like, you just don't love me. You won't come out for me. I'm tired of this. I wish I never knew you. He just is like going at it. And then they get on the airplane. And the last thing he'd ever text to Shane isn't the messages of like, I carry you in my heart, all those beautiful things. The last thing he ever texts him is, I wish I never knew you. And then there's the crash. And he wakes up back in 2008 outside the Regina, Saskatchewan World Juniors, smoking a cigarette, leaning against the door, and Shane Hollander's coming up to him and saying hello. And he's fully conscious of his entire life that he lived before. And he's like, am I in heaven? Like, what's happening? I don't understand. And then he very quickly realizes that he's getting a second chance at everything. So yeah, this is a second chance. There are a couple of these that I've had my eye on. I think I have one other one saved as well. But this is one that's a bit shorter of one. It was like 270 pages or so. But yeah, Ilya gets a second chance. And some of the choices that he decides to make are very interesting. Well, I'll just tell you one. So a big change that he makes is he purposely fucks up his draft pick to get taken to Ottawa early. He gets taken to Ottawa. So instead of being the first draft pick, he becomes, I believe, the 9th or 11th. I can't remember. I think it's the 9th draft pick. And he's drafted to Ottawa early. And he basically tells Shane, because him and Shane now have talked a few times in this world, in this new world. He has very much tried to talk to Shane. He has shown his interest in him right away. He is trying to make him comfortable with him right away. And he says to him, he's like, Ottawa's closer to you. I don't want to go to Boston. There, he says, he's like, I don't want to go there. I don't want this. I don't want that. And Shane still goes to Montreal. And that's kind of a big change they start. So it's also very interesting because Ilya's in this younger body, but he still has all the knowledge of all the years that he played before. So he does start kind of changing the game for Ottawa earlier, right? He starts making them better sooner, which is very interesting. So I won't spoil everything in case anyone's interested in this, but it's also interesting too that he's not the only one who has flashes of his previous life. Well, for Shane, he fully remembers for Ilya, he fully remembers his life before. He remembers all of it. But we will get Shane's POV sometime, and he will get flashes of things that feel like deja vu to him. When certain things happen, he will get flashes of Ilya saying some things to him, or memories they have together, or things like that. And I won't spoil all those, but those are amazing. But one of the things I think is a really interesting choice to make here is that someone else is going to come out first. I'll say that. Like, someone else in the Game Changer world now will be the first to come out publicly. Not Scott Hunter. Of course, Scott Hunter is still gay. Of course, every gay Avenger is still gay in this world. They're still gay. But if they come out in an order different than they do in the Game Changer universe, how does that change the levels of support that there are? Just the level of power behind the person who's coming out. Scott came out right after he won a cup. he kissed his boyfriend while holding the cup in his hand. What happens if someone comes out who doesn't have such positive power behind them when they do? How much harder could it be? Because it's going to be hard anyway. How much harder could it be? And is it so simple as Ilya made it sound when he said those harsh words to his boyfriend before he died the first time, before he got a second chance? So I thought this was beautifully done. Really, it was so good. And I just loved that this was literally such a cool take on how to do an AU. Like, it literally was, the story is, this is an alternative universe within an alternative universe kind of thing. And I love that type of story. So I really enjoyed this. It was so sweet too. And I love ones where, what if they're together for longer type of, and with less animosity. Like, I love those type of ones, right? So yeah. But anyway, that is everything that I read this week. Again, I know it was very fic heavy and very reread heavy. I have a lot of new ones that I'm reading this next week lined up, so hopefully I'll get to those. There was also a lot of new releases that I needed to get to that my brain wasn't ready for it. I wanted to do some of those rereads, so that's what we got. But it's all good things. So thank you so much for watching, friends. And again, welcome to my new patron, Endless Possibilities. So happy to have you. If you'd like to support me, remember I do have a sampler pack now available on my Patreon, so you can check that out if you'd like to see some of the types of videos and content that are available to patrons there. You just have to check out a free membership and you can see some of those there. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye.